Warriors fans, let's dive straight into what has easily become the biggest storyline to shake up the NBA in recent weeks. Fred VanVleet, one of the toughest and most respected competitors in the league, has gone down with a torn ACL. Nobody likes to see injuries like this, especially when it happens to a player who carved his way into the NBA the hard way. VanVleet wasn't drafted. He had to grind through every obstacle, work his way into a roster spot, and eventually transform himself into a champion with the Raptors back in 2019. Since then, he's been a consistent problem for defenses around the league, including the Warriors. We all remember how much of a pest he has been against Steph Curry specifically. Losing him, no matter what team you support, is tough to watch because he represents everything fans love about basketball: resilience, heart, and a relentless will to compete. But here's the reality. While you never celebrate a player's injury, the league doesn't stop moving. And for the Warriors, this shift opens a door of opportunity. The Rockets were already one of those young, dangerous teams climbing up the ladder, and with Kevin Durant in the fold, they're not just building for the future, they're trying to win right now. VanVleet was the floor general, the guy who kept everyone organized and brought a veteran steadiness to an otherwise young roster. Without him, Houston's plans suddenly feel shaky. They're now left with Reed Sheppard, a top 3 pick from a draft class that scouts have widely called one of the weakest in over a decade. Sure, Sheppard might turn into something great down the line, but putting the keys to a playoff contending team in the hands of a second-year player with limited NBA experience? That's a massive gamble, especially in a Western Conference where every small misstep can send you tumbling down the standings. Houston could look at the market for help, but that opens a whole other set of complications. The first name that naturally comes to mind is Russell Westbrook, but the history between him and Durant is messy. Everyone remembers that 2016 Western Conference Finals, when the Thunder were up 3-1 on the Warriors before collapsing. Durant was on fire in that Game 7, doing everything possible to push Oklahoma City through, but Russ fell into hero ball mode at the worst time. That loss led directly to Durant leaving for Golden State, and it's unclear whether either side has fully moved past it. Bringing those two back together in Houston would be a huge risk. Maybe it works, maybe it blows up in their face, but either way it leaves the Rockets exposed. For the Warriors, though, this is where things start to get interesting. You take VanVleet out of Houston's lineup, and suddenly Golden State's path in the postseason gets a little clearer. Instead of preparing for 2 defensive nightmares in the backcourt, Steph and company only have to deal with Amen Thompson. He's still a tough matchup, no doubt, but going up against one relentless defender is a much better problem to solve than dealing with 2. It reduces the pressure, and in a 7-game series, those small advantages matter a lot. Another angle here is roster flexibility. The Warriors have multiple spots they can still maneuver with, and this is exactly the kind of moment where smart front offices exploit uncertainty. The Rockets are desperate to find a stable replacement for VanVleet, and that opens the door for a creative trade. Think about it. Moses Moody is still just 23 years old. He's been part of playoff runs every season since he entered the league, and he's on a reasonable contract. Package him with a couple of second-rounders, and you suddenly have an offer that might tempt Houston. It sounds strange on paper. Why would the Rockets give up on a recent top 3 pick so quickly? But when you factor in the draft class he came from, it starts to make sense. That 2024 draft simply didn't have the kind of star power teams usually get from the top picks. Reed Sheppard might be solid, but he doesn't carry the same untouchable value as prospect from stronger classes. If that swap goes through, the Warriors could then flip Sheppard in another deal to land a more seasoned contributor. That's where Jonathan Kuminga's name keeps surfacing. Golden State has been weighing what to do with him for a while, and pairing him with Sheppard in a deal could unlock better trade packages than just dangling Moody or Buddy Hield alongside Kuminga. It's the classic case of a shiny new toy drawing more attention than a player people have already formed an opinion on. Sheppard's newness as a recent lottery pick could raise his market value, and the Warriors could use that to pry away a reliable starter or a bench piece that fits into a championship rotation. Chicago, for instance, makes sense as a trade partner. The Bulls have been stuck in limbo for years, trying to figure out their direction. Adding a young talent like Shepherd along with Kuminga might push them into talks they otherwise wouldn't entertain if it was just Moody on the table. Miami is another intriguing possibility. The Heat always seem to be one or two moves away from reshaping their roster around Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and their collection of tradable contracts, Tyler Herro, Terry Rozier, maybe even pieces like Nikola Jovic, could be part of a deal if Golden State sweetens the pot with Shepherd and Kuminga. What makes all of this so fascinating is how one injury, as unfortunate as it is, can completely shift the balance of power in the league. For Houston, Van Vleet's absence means scrambling to find answers, rethinking how to structure their rotation, and potentially making a short-term move they might not have planned for. For the Warriors, it means flexibility, opportunity, and maybe even a clearer path to the playoffs. Nobody in Golden State is going to say it out loud, but behind closed doors they know this development eases the pressure. One less minutes to deal with in a conference that is stacked top to bottom is a big deal. And beyond the trade angles, it's also about momentum. Teams like the Warriors thrive on any edge they can get. Knowing that the Rockets are suddenly vulnerable, that their young guys will be tested in ways they weren't expecting, gives Golden State a psychological lift. Even if it's just a small boost, those things add up when the margins are razor thin. The other layer to this whole situation is the ripple effect across the rest of the Western Conference. When a contender like Houston loses its floor general, every other team in the race takes notice. Opposing coaches are already scheming differently, looking at the Rockets as a team that can be pressured in ways they couldn't before. Without Van Vleet controlling the tempo, setting up shooters, and keeping young guys in the right spots, Houston's offense risks becoming stagnant. It is not just about losing points or assists. It is about losing poise. Van Vleet is the kind of veteran who knows how to calm things down in a hostile arena or when a 10-0 run is turning the tide. Without him, you hand over that responsibility to players who are still figuring out how to handle those moments. That is not a small detail. It is a massive swing in playoff basketball. And this is where Golden State can quietly sharpen their edge. The Warriors have been criticized the last couple of seasons for being caught between timelines, trying to develop younger players while also chasing another championship with their veteran core. A lot of the trade talk around Kuminga, Moody, and others comes from that tension. But this moment feels like it could be the bridge that connects those timelines in a meaningful way. If they can leverage Moody into a deal that nets Shepherd and then use Shepherd's value to land a win-now piece, suddenly the front office can balance both sides of the equation. The veterans get help, the rotation gains stability, and the younger players who stay are placed into clearer roles without the pressure of carrying more than they are ready for. Take Kuminga as an example. He has shown flashes of brilliance, but his fit in Golden State has always been debated. Some nights, he looks like the future star they hoped for. Other nights, he disappears in the flow of the game. That inconsistency has made it tough for the Warriors to commit fully to him. But if pairing him with Shepherd unlocks a stronger trade return, that might finally give the Warriors clarity. It is not about giving up on Kuminga's potential. It is about maximizing the window they still have with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. That window is not going to be open forever, and wasting seasons on uncertainty is a luxury they cannot afford. Miami comes back into focus here because of how their culture matches Golden State's hunger. The Heat value tough, hard-nosed players who can contribute in a playoff atmosphere, and a package with Shepherd and Kuminga could entice them apart with someone who is both productive and experienced. Imagine the Warriors adding a scoring wing who can create off the dribble or a versatile defender who relieves pressure from Draymond. That type of addition could make the difference in a second-round matchup against Denver or Minnesota. Chicago is another possibility, as their front office has been stuck in no man's land for years. They have veterans who do not quite fit a rebuild and young players who have not fully blossomed. A move involving Shepherd and Kuminga could finally push them into a direction, whether that is tearing things down or reloading with fresh talent. For Golden State, bringing back a two-way forward or even a proven sixth man from a team like the Bulls would immediately raise their playoff ceiling. It is also worth noting that the Rockets themselves could benefit in the short term from bringing in Moody. He might not have the star appeal of top pick, but he is steady. He has hit big shots in playoff games. He knows how to play within a system, and he would not demand the ball the way a young guard still trying to prove himself might. Houston could sell that move as balancing their roster, saving some money, and giving Shepherd time to develop without being thrown into the fire as the lead guard on a playoff contender. Meanwhile, Golden State gets the shiny trade chip they can immediately flip. What makes this fascinating for the Warriors fan base is how quickly fortunes can change. 2 weeks ago, the Rockets looked like a roadblock in the making. They had Van Vleet orchestrating, Durant providing firepower, and their young core growing in confidence. Now, with one injury, the perception shifts. Suddenly, Houston looks vulnerable, and the Warriors look opportunistic. That is the nature of the NBA. Dynasties rise and fall not just because of talent, but because of timing, health, and the ability to adapt faster than your rivals. Think back to 2016 when Golden State's 73-win season ended without a championship. Draymond's suspension, Bogut's injury, and LeBron's brilliance flipped history on its head. Timing and circumstance are everything. That is why this Van Vleet injury, as unfortunate as it is, becomes a domino that could set off a chain reaction. If the Warriors act decisively, they could reshape their roster before February in a way that positions them perfectly for another deep run. If they hesitate, another team might swoop in and capitalize instead. From a psychological perspective, it also gives the Warriors a breath of relief. Facing Van Vleet in a playoff series is a nightmare. He never gets rattled, he defends like crazy, and he has that clutch gene where he can hit back-breaking shots just when you think you have momentum. Taking him out of the equation is like removing a thorn from your side. The Rockets will still be dangerous, but they are not the same monster without their general. For Steph, for Clay, for Kerr, it is one less problem to lose sleep over. And that matters. Now, there's always the risk that Shepherd proves everyone wrong and blossoms faster than expected. Sometimes players from weaker draft classes use that doubt as fuel. If Houston decides to hand him the reins, he might surprise people with his poise and shot-making. But even if that happens, the learning curve of running an NBA offense is brutal, especially against playoff defenses that will target him relentlessly. The Warriors know this, and it is another reason why they will feel emboldened in potential matchups. The clock is ticking for the Warriors front office. They cannot sit back and hope for things to fall into place. This is the moment to be aggressive, to use every bit of leverage they can muster. Moses Moody's playoff experience, Reed Shepherd's trade value, Jonathan Kuminga's upside, all of it should be on the table. Because at the end of the day, the Warriors are not playing for next season or the one after that. They are playing for the here and now, for every last ounce of Steph Curry's prime, for one more banner before the dynasty officially transitions into memory. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the NBA, whispers are swirling that the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers are on the verge of completing a blockbuster trade that could reshape the league's landscape. Sources close to both organizations suggest that none other than LeBron James might be at the center of this jaw-dropping deal, potentially leaving fans across the country in disbelief. The mere idea of James donning a Warriors jersey has ignited feverish speculation, sparking debates on social media and in sports bars from San Francisco to Los Angeles. According to insiders, the discussions have been ongoing for weeks, with front offices from both franchises quietly negotiating what could be one of the most talked-about moves in recent memory. While no official confirmation has been released, the rumor mill indicates that the Warriors are eyeing James not just as a star player, but as a transformative figure who could push the team back into championship contention. Meanwhile, the Lakers are reportedly looking to capitalize on the opportunity to restructure their roster, acquiring promising talent and draft picks in exchange for the superstar. The potential implications of such a trade are staggering. Imagine the Warriors' already potent lineup augmented by LeBron's veteran leadership and unparalleled basketball IQ. Analysts suggest that a team featuring the likes of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and LeBron James could be nearly unstoppable, blending sharpshooting with powerhouse versatility in a combination the league has rarely, if ever, seen. Fans are already envisioning epic playoff clashes and the possibility of another Golden State dynasty emerging, this time with one of the game's greatest players in tow. Of course, the deal remains shrouded in mystery, and the NBA community is holding its collective breath for any sign of confirmation. Contract negotiations, salary cap considerations, and LeBron's own stance could all play pivotal roles in determining whether this sensational rumor becomes reality. Still, the mere suggestion of LeBron James leaving Los Angeles for Golden State has set the rumor mills ablaze, and speculation shows no sign of slowing down. Could we be witnessing the dawn of an entirely new era in the NBA? Only time will tell, but for now, fans are hanging on every whisper of this epic, league-altering saga. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.